Leadership isn't theory. It's pressure. Responsibility. Decisions that matter. This is the Real Leadership Brief. Conversations with leaders shaped by experience. Tested under pressure. And accountable for the outcome.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of The Real Leadership Brief. I am your host, Don, and today we've got Walter Dusseldorf. He is a passionate mentor and personal development coach dedicated to helping people unlock their full potential. As the founder of the DutchMentor.com, he's built a growing community focused on growth, resilience, and leadership. Walter blends real-world experience with practical strategies that listeners can immediately apply to their own lives. A dynamic speaker and storyteller, he teaches the power of mindset, confidence, and continuous improvement. When he's not mentoring, Walter flies helicopters and airplanes, bringing a unique perspective on focus, risk, and growth. Welcome to the show. How you doing, Walter?
I'm doing great. Thank you for the nice introduction, and it's a pleasure to be here. Look forward to adding value to the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, leadership comes in all different shapes and sizes and everything else. How did you get into the mentoring side of this?
The mentoring side of it really starts later on, right? Because truly the word mentor means that you come from a place of experience. In order to get experience, you need to do things 2 or 3 or 4 times. So for my having spent 33 years in emergency services as a paramedic and flight paramedic, working very closely with local police departments, hand in hand. And then, of course, somewhere along the way, 20 years ago, I went into healthcare administration because I had to send 5 kids to college, and I couldn't do that on an emergency services salary. So I really transitioned from a command and control situation to a different type of leadership. And I think learning to be a mentor starts by making lots of mistakes along the way and see how you can, overcome that. And of course, now I'm trying to share with my pitfalls to help people over there, having to go through the same turbulent years or missing out on opportunities. Because a lot of these things could become career stoppers if you're not aware.
Yeah, I think especially myself coming as a veteran, I struggled going from the military and practicing one form of leadership where it is completely different and the mission's completely different. As you can speak, coming from emergency services, now we're talking about life and death. And then when you go into that kind of a background of experience of leadership and you go into a company that makes widgets, now nobody dies if you miss production from making those widgets. However, there's still a sense of urgency and importance for the company as well. And so your leadership styles have got to change as well as your thought process. What were some of the things that you discovered making those changes, coming from that world of life and death and into more of a leadership style for community?
Yeah, sure. I think that the best way to say is that back in the early 90s when I started working as a paramedic, I was very good at it. I knew my stuff. And because of that, I was recognized as somebody that should become the supervisor. Mm-hmm. Well, going from doing to leading is a completely ball of wax.
Yeah.
So luckily, I had a really good manager who invited me into the position and kind of kept an eye on me from afar. So he didn't micromanage me, but he allowed me to make mistakes. So I came to America in 1988, and I'll never forget, I was picked up at the corner of Main and Broadway in Hancock, New York, and a guy named Jimmy picked me up and say, 2 things I need you to remember for the rest of your life. You don't know shit from Shinola, and do as I say, not as I do. I said, all right, I guess that's how we're going to work today. But you know what? It is having worked for that period of time in the command and control where it truly is. Listen, you don't know anything, just do as I say. Yeah. Follow orders. And now all of a sudden you are in a position. Now you have 2 choices, right? You either work with people and you lead them to water and show them what's in it for them, right? Which of course I didn't have those skills. So I continued to tell people what to do. And all of a sudden I felt like, nobody's following me, or it's really difficult to get things done because nobody. And so by default, I said, well, if they're not going to do it, they're not going to listen to me, I'll do it myself. And that's the biggest thing that we see, is that people either fail to make adjustments, or they end up doing as leaders and then not really effectively lead. That leads to a great frustration. Many people, never find, really an equilibrium or a new pathway into leadership, and they leave, which is a shame. So that's where, the lessons that I learned the hard way, and of course, along the way, I had to be knocked on the side of the head a few times. But thank God I had somebody who was willing to tell me the truth. Right? It's very difficult to find somebody who's willing to tell you what you need to hear. People love to tell you what you want to hear, but not what you need to hear. And that's really, really important.
Yeah, I think you are 100% correct there. And some of that comes from the fact that, your leadership style, I'm a firm believer, is built based off of your life experiences, right? You're always going to draw back off of those experiences when you become faced with a decision that you're going to have to make as a leader. And some of that is good and some of that's bad. But at the end of the day, if you don't have those experiences to draw from, then you're flipping coins, and that becomes even more dangerous in any kind of environment. When you decided to make your program, the Dutch Mentor, who did you build this for, and what was your thought process with it?
So I started by learning myself. By in 2010 or 11 or so, I was getting more and more responsibilities on an executive level, having many in the whole business, many departments with hundreds of people, 500, 600, 700, 800 people, from doctors all the way down to the frontline nursing staff. So I had to continue to learn and grow with that. And I was lucky enough to be able to recognize that I couldn't do it alone. And I recruited a really good mentor, Mark, to be part of that journey. And as we started that journey together, he really brought three fundamental things to me, to my attention, that I needed to work on. Is that you need to raise self-awareness. And within self-awareness comes a lot. Second thing is that you stop putting band-aids on problems. You have to solve them at the root cause. And third, that you need to establish an operational rhythm for yourself and for the organization in order to have sustainable successes over time. All of this is rooted in behavior, less technical skills. So then out of that, I said, well, listen, and once I started grasping his teaching, his guidance, his mentorship, I was able to put a program together. So I said, listen, all of my folks who are here have never really gone through leadership training before. So we started enrolling them more as a team of doctors, nurses, and administrators with multiple disciplines together, and we started seeing real results. So out of that, I birthed, 10 years went by of experience and doing it over and over and over, refining it. And post, COVID, I said, listen, I think I want to do this full time on my own. And that's when the Dutch Mentor came alive. And I've been pushing this ever since, and building that, and very successfully as some of the testimonies you can find on my website of the people who really have found a breakthrough and found joy.
Yeah, I think this is one topic that you can go online and you can find self-improvement books, and you can find all these coaching and mentoring programs and everything. But at the end of the day, leadership is one of those things that isn't necessarily just self-improvement. It really becomes a necessity, because leadership does not mean that you have to be in charge of others. You can be a leader as somebody who's not a supervisor, part of being a family man, is leading your family, leading your children in the right direction. These are all leadership skills that become important. And I think programs like yourself, like what you have, is important, because we're not necessarily speaking about how to just improve yourself and give yourself more confidence. We're now talking about how to give yourself more confidence and teach that to somebody else as well.
Yeah, people cannot forget that you're always a leader of one. That's you.
Yeah.
So you need to learn how to be accountable to yourself. And that is probably one of the most difficult skills to establish with anybody, right? It is that, pick anything that you should be doing, you're not doing, and try to now do it consistently and see how well you do it. Well, likely not very well. And how do I know that? Well, think of something we all know about. On December 31st, I said, this is going to be a kick-ass year. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to get myself a membership. I go 4 times the first week, 3 times the second week, twice the third week, go back four more times for the rest of the year. Because our behaviors are not rooted into really, bearing down and grinding it out and getting the deep commitment to create new normals. And that's where the struggle starts. We have a tendency, even in the military or emergency services, when things go wrong, we go back and reteaching the technical things on how to do it. But it really is why we do it. And really understanding what part of the brain is active when, and how can I form healthy habits and behaviors so I can get this done in a correct manner for a sustainable period of time.
So let's talk a little bit about a client that comes to you and is looking for some help. Where do you start with the individuals?
So I try to meet my client where they are. So I don't make it about me, and I don't make it about the Dutch Mentor or the Pure Leadership Power Program, the 1, 2, 3. So the first thing is you learn to listen very clearly what it is what it is that they're experiencing, and I take them back all the way. Try to explain and tell me your true why. And most people don't really know that. And go back to your early teenage years, or even before that. Why do you do what you do today? So that's why I normally start all clients, is try to really kind of like solidify in a 43-second story. You say 43 seconds, but I want a hook, I want a body, and I want a closing, but all about the why, not the what and how. And once they understand how difficult it is to bring, and I have real breakthroughs of people that what they're doing is really not what they want to do.
Yeah.
And sadly, as many people work 40, 50 hours a week, not liking what they do, they just do it for a paycheck. And again, I'm not telling anybody you should quit your job tomorrow, but you owe it to yourself, because you only have one life to live, is find things you really love to do. And if you're not in that role today, then you should take small steps every day to get closer to the role that you want to occupy and that you can work with great passion and purpose. So that's what we normally say. That's the foundation. Once you have that solidified, right, and the sub foundation of the conversation is about mental wellness, spiritual wellness, physical wellness, relationship wellness, and financial wellness. So it's the combination of your purpose, or I call it 4 Ps: purpose, passion on the heart level, and then combine it with the people and the process you want to work with. That combined with those 5 pillars, that you have to understand is a constant state of motion. You have to pay attention to it. You cannot ignore it, because before you know, you have a 4-legged stool, and before you know, you have a 3-legged stool, and then everything else will come crumbling down. And that is really, really important. So that's step number 1.
Yeah, I can't argue that at all. I agree 100%. And I really like the part about what you said, you meeting them and not making it about you or your program. Because at the end of the day, I think any of these kind of programs like that, the person coming to you is the most important person right there, because we're making it about you. It's not about what I'm going to do when I walk away from here. It's what are you going to do when you walk away from here? So that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I think it's really important that I can lead any horse to water.
Yeah,
but I can't make you drink it. And if the horse won't drink, then I'm not successful. So the first thing we need to really understand is what are they, what's the client experiencing. The second thing is, I don't teach lessons. I don't do webinars. I don't do conferences. I don't even like to go out and speaking engagements. I do them, but what I like is actionable, mentorship. So I come from deep personal experiences. I share my stories to which they can relate, and then we build an action item that day that we can start doing tomorrow. The problem with all of the other things we just talked about is that we go to them. It's a great social event. By Monday morning, you have long forgotten anything that was said. Forget about taking action on any of them. So to be honest with you, it's a complete waste of time. Right? Yeah. Other than networking, right? Because networking has value to it. But we shouldn't be over-promising that all these educational events are going to give you everything you need. You don't. So again, it comes back to we need to change the way we do things. And I found the most effective way is I meet with all my folks at least for 30 minutes per week. So it's the first accountability to learn to be on the calendar, to self-schedule, to meet 1 to 30 minutes, and to practice 15 minutes per day. So for leadership, it is in just 15 minutes per day, you too can be the leader you always want to have, or the leader that your team needs you to thrive under. But Shirley said, listen, in just 15 minutes a day, you can be ... You want to learn to play the guitar or the piano or the saxophone? Just practice 15 minutes a day. You want to fly an airplane or a helicopter? Just practice 15 minutes a day. Cumulatively, those 15 minutes are building blocks to something that, so it is to dream big, but act small, right?
Yeah.
If you don't take action, it's all for nothing.
Yeah, I think what you said there is important because I have encountered a lot of people. You're pulling me back to my military days, and I remember all these opportunities that I had to lead that I didn't take advantage of because soldiers that were getting out of the military, you always heard the same thing. Well, I'm going to open up my own business. I've heard all of it all the way from there to I'm going to become a musician and start recording my own music and I'm going to be a producer and all these wild things. Right. And they were opening doors for me to take advantage of leading opportunities and asking, what steps are you going to take to create these? And when you start putting in the work for it and you start laying out these programs of what it's going to take to get to where you want, and you start seeing that they don't want to put that work in, I think at the end of the day, what you realized was that really isn't what you wanted.
Often the case.
Yeah. I agree.
The other part of it is that people don't have the behavior to do something on a sustainable basis.
Yeah.
Right. It is that it goes right back to the gym. It goes right back to drinking a glass of water. It goes right back to the simple behaviors that we all know are good for us, but we don't. Why? That's a little different for each one of us.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
All behavior based. It has nothing to do with the technical skill of going to the gym or drinking water or reading a book or saying your prayers or whatever else. But that's the foundation, right? If you can learn to do that well, everything else becomes a little bit easier.
And I think this is a good segue into my next question here. So, what does a growth mindset really mean in everyday's life, right? So obviously we're talking about an individual wants to get from point A to point B in their life, right? Whatever that situation is. All of that means some sort of growth has got to happen in order for you to successfully get there.
Yeah.
What does that mean in everyday life for a person?
So first thing that people need to adopt to is a teachable mindset. Right? You need to be able to be open to learn. Now we need to become very aware of our subconscious biases that have been developed from the time we were born and all the experiences along the way. In order to be teachable, we need to have more awareness around the subconscious biases because otherwise we'll lock ourselves out. That's one. Two is that a growth mindset means that I need to continue to do something out of my normal every day. So again, it goes back to my philosophy, right? In just 15 minutes per day, you can. So part of that, Pure Leadership Power Program built out is a smart performance app, and it's currently available in the Apple Store, where people can literally go there for 15 minutes a day and just randomly pick out the topic they want to learn about. And there's 50, 60 hours worth of stuff there. By the time you're done with all of that, you can go back or listen to the same thing over and over until it really becomes part of who you are, right? Not something else to do, but something part. That's what a growth mindset is. A growth mindset is a commitment to be teachable and to seek information, not waiting for it to be provided to you, but to seek information that is outside of your normal. And that's where growth comes from, right? And is that so? Today, I'm teaching 2 classes at Rutgers University. So that requires me. I do that because I love it, but that also requires me to expand my knowledge in order to be able to show mastery to the students, right? So that's a way for me to continue to grow. I'm a pilot. I fly airplanes and helicopters, but I kept going with the education until I'm a flight instructor instrument for a helicopter, and I'm working on my airplane flight instructor instrument over the next couple of months because that's growth mindset, right? It is not that you should never be satisfied. You should celebrate all the successes along the way.
Yeah.
But it is stagnation right? Laziness, institutional laziness that prevents you from getting to where you want to go. Now, there's a quick measure that you can do for yourself, right? If I say to you, what is your big dream? And people say, well, I don't have a big dream. Well, let's start there, right? That means you don't have a growth mindset. If you dream but your dream is not big enough, you're limiting yourself.
Yeah.
That's the kind of like exercises you have to. There's a really cool exercise you can do on paper to show people on how locked in they are. And there's plenty of brain, exercise you can do. You can find it, Google it, and it can show you how limited the brain is. And that's really, it is usually eye-opening to people that something so simple they cannot do.
I had a guest come on my show, and she's doing exactly what you have discussed and what you just said without even realizing it. And I find it fascinating how accurate you are, because what she did, she's a Harvard graduate. She's an attorney. She's working with the Jacksonville Jaguars as the assistant chief executive officer for their legal team. So she's got all this high powered stuff that's really good. Right. And over the years, she has successfully learned how to play guitar, and just to get out of her comfort zone, once a year, she books a gig to go get on a stage and play. And it has nothing to do with that she thinks she's going to become a musician. It's about grounding herself, putting herself outside her comfort zone, and then using that as a teachable and a learnable moment at that time. So I think you're exactly right. Success comes from being uncomfortable and then pushing through it and then reflecting on it.
It is. So I'll give your audience a simple example of what they can do. So assuming that most people go to work and most people drive to work. So it is our natural, normal behavior to park the car as close as possible to the door that you need to enter to get into your workplace. So my challenge to all of you is to, now from tomorrow morning, right? So it's immediately actionable. Park your car the furthest away from the door. Now that's going to take you to think about that. Because your natural tendency is to always go back to the same spot or go to the same desk. These are natural, normal things we do. Our brains are trained to do that. So breaking that mold. Now, the key thing is this. See how long it takes, how many trips it takes before your normal is to go to that spot. You don't even think about that spot close to the door. And people will be surprised. That could take somewhere to 90 to 120 days of repetitions before that has become normal. Now, we all know that 70, 80% of the time we fail because we don't have the attention spent to get to that new normal.
Yeah.
Right. And so a simple exercise. And by the way, if you do that, you get an additional 1,000 steps in, and it'll be good for your heart as well. But it's a really powerful exercise to prove to yourself if you cannot do it. And again, sadly, 70 to 80% of people fail this simple exercise, even though they can buy into it, even though they understand it's healthy for them and it's bad for especially if we should need to spots open close to the door for our clients. Right?
Yeah.
So good thing to people to try out.
Yeah. And you are right, because when I first got out of the military, I opened up a trucking company. And the first thing I said to myself was, I am always going to park my truck the furthest away from the truck stop as I can to make myself exercise. Right. Then I didn't make it 70 days. And the end result was I got fat, but I became very good at backing up a trailer. Because the closer to that truck stop you got, the harder it was to get into a parking spot because they're always all taken. The easy ones are always gone quick.
Of course.
And so I did learn something, but at the end of the day, I created a bunch of negatives, and that was I got overweight, I got lazy, and at the end of the day, I didn't keep up. That's the biggest problem, is I didn't keep up with what I agreed with myself.
Yeah. So the missing part, and this is what you need to add to it. So I just described doing something, right? Taking an action. Now, in order to hold yourself accountable, get a calendar, and every day that you do it, you evaluate yourself and say, "Listen, did I do it? I didn't do it. It's red. Yeah, I did kind of so. I did yellow. If I did it well, I did it green." Every time you see more than one or two yellows and reds next to each other, you have to come up with a consequence. You have to take away something from yourself, the Frappuccino at Starbucks, your favorite six-pack of beer at night, your cigar, whatever it is, something meaningful, but not demeaning.
Right.
So taking these actions by making it a commitment, right? It's within reach, it's not out of stretch, but it's within reach, by measuring your performance on a daily basis. And when you're non-performing, there's a consequence. And that is the combination where the magic comes together. That if you hold yourself, now if you're still struggling and not doing that, then get yourself an accountability partner. Work with somebody else. So I have people who literally text me every morning at 9 o'clock and say, Walter, I said my prayers, I drank my water, I did, in order to establish healthy habits. Right now, once you make these healthy habits, it becomes more of a normal. So you're a military guy, and thank you for your service, by the way. I appreciate that.
Thank you. You too.
It is. Thank you. Why does a soldier make his bed in the morning?
Because of the repercussions if he doesn't.
Reason.
Why is that?
The reason is that they make you do it is because it speaks to mindset. If you do the first task in the morning right, you're most likely to do it right the remainder of the day and not cut corners. That's the reason why they make you make your bed. So it is to establish a healthy habit of discipline and doing things right out of the gate. And that's the power, right? It is that it becomes a habit. And if you do that habit well, next time you go, if you're a mechanic, you'll have your tools in order. If your bed is a mess, your toolbox is a mess. Right? And that's how it works.
Yeah, you I didn't think about it that way, but yeah, you are right, and I think it's important to have those kind of things as well, because again, when you look at society, we naturally will allow a small moment of our day affect our whole day. And that can be good and bad. It could be just as simple as, hey, I did a really good job making my bed today. It's perfect. The corners are directly 45s and I've been struggling, but hey, I got it right today. And that sets that day going forward as being a positive day and things are going good, and then you walk out and you spill a cup of coffee on your boots that you just shined and now your day is ruined, and you allow it to take a moment out of that day as well. But good or bad, exactly like you said, you're putting your foot forward and doing what you need to do in the correct thing. So yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, let me teach a lesson, right? A lesson that I had to learn the hard way myself. So there's this very simple equation. I want to everybody put it on a post-it note, put it right, and somewhere you can see it all of the time. Is E multiplied by R equals O. So events going to take place in our lives, like it or not. It's going to happen. Now, out of those events, whatever it is, there's going to be an outcome. The thing is that we can impact that outcome on how we either respond to them versus how we react to them. So you can say when you spill the coffee on your on your nice boot, and you can react and curse up a storm and stomp the ground and feel like shit for the rest of the day, pardon my French. Yeah. Or you can say, you know what, maybe I didn't polish them the right way. This is God punishing me, so I need to polish again to have an even nicer shoe. So this is that's how I respond to things, right? Yeah. So the best thing to do for people to recognize is that our brain is really made out of two parts, a positive side and a negative side. And it's not equal. Our negative brain is larger, proportionately speaking, than our positive brain. So we love to hang on to drama and bad things and talk about and just cup half empty kind of approach. What we need to do is promote, and it's exactly what the military is trying to do with you by making the bed first thing in the morning. We want to promote the positive brain. So listen, make your bed in the morning. Say your words of gratitude in the morning. Do some journaling or writing. Do some visualizing, right? Remind yourself of a co-priming. Remind yourself of all the things you have accomplished. If you have a meeting come up, visualize a successful meeting. All these very simple things can lead to better outcomes. And that is really, really important, right? Yeah. Now, remember that, no different than EQ and emotional intelligence is a muscle, right? So it's something you need to exercise on a daily basis in order to, give it strength. If you don't do it, it weakens. And that is something that we need to get into the discipline. So when I work with my clients and they're the ones who struggle with low confidence or self-doubt or with a negative brain, that's how they start the day. Right? By starting off right and promoting that positive brain over and over and over until that's how they learn to live. Right? That becomes a new normal over time. And it's critically important to people's success journey.
Yeah. So this kind of segues into that as well then. So how do you define resilience in real terms, not just motivational quotes, right? Part of what you just said requires some resilience.
Yeah, and that really comes, resilience is, again, these are consultative attributes of words that, what does it really mean? The key is to be able to be resilient. Listen, I have to be resilient right now. I have to let my 15-week-old Great Dane puppy bite on my hand because she clearly says, "Daddy, you've worked way too hard today. You need to pay attention to me."
Yep.
That's what resilience is. Resilience is to find to find the energy, to find a way through something that is not going exactly the way it is supposed to go. And that is, is not giving up. It's not walking away from it. It's not being, you still need to be pragmatic, right? So you need to understand when enough is enough. And it's so interesting, we have a whole discussion about it, but we're seeing all the stuff that's happening in Minnesota right now. Right? Yeah. Clearly two sides and a bunch of things there. But how much longer are you going to go the exact same way and expect a different outcome? That's not going to happen.
Right.
I was happy that Trump said, listen, enough. We're going to change things up. We're going to take a new approach without losing face, without having to make a decision that we are going to alter the way we do things on either side of the equation. But that's something that we need to do in leadership too. You can go at it. And if you're stuck, the resilience is to find a way out of that by making a new path. And that is really, important. Again, it's a skill that you want to learn to develop over time. And again, a mentor can help you with that because a mentor can often help you see what that was like and when they were going through those types of experiences themselves.
Yeah. I never thought of it as a term of resilience, but you are correct. One of the things that I enjoyed working with my younger NCOs, especially new NCOs, you would see them get stuck. They would have a soldier that they're just stuck when trying to figure out, how do I get this guy to do the right things? And they just don't have that leadership experience. Right. And one of the things that I always enjoyed pushing on them and asking was, whose job is it? Is it that soldier's job to change the way he learns? Or is it your job to change the way you lead that can get the best results from the way that soldier learns? And it makes it difficult for us. And you do have to be resilient to understand that not everybody is going to learn from my leadership style. Sometimes I have to get out of my comfort zone, change the way I am, so that it resonates with the person that I am trying to lead. And I think
go ahead.
I think it's important that we look at it from that way, because not everybody is going to react the same way. Some people you can just talk to like adults and they're perfectly good with it. And other people you try to just have a natural conversation and they walk over you, so it takes that ability to be able to adjust.
So I think that it's a good time to mention that the different types of leadership, right? Is that so in the military you have a command and control, do as I say, not as I do.
Correct.
And if you don't follow orders, there's going to be punishment. So in the real world, outside the military, outside of emergency services, people are now more promoting to do servant type leadership, right?
Correct.
Now, but really, the right connection is to be situational leadership. And situational means that I need to learn to adapt to the person that's in front of me. Things that you talk about. Getting to understand the intrinsic value of the individual, understand what is important to them, what are their key drivers, is much. Once you understand it as a leader, that's what I refer to as loving them, right? It's just a genuine, friendly type of love. As long as you can connect it back to the outcome that you seek, which is what we call the North Star, then you, instead of telling that person you have to do A, B, and C, which often doesn't resonate with them, you say, you going to do today to get one step closer to that? And of course, let them make that psychological contract with you on what it is that they can and will do for today to get one step. Now, the danger is our expectation is for them to be overnight, be just like me. But that ain't going to, that's not happening. Or the second thing is, like I say, so we're going to follow up next week, see how you're doing. And we don't follow up because we get too busy. So we never really support that person through that growth period in order to find a way. So the solution is, and what I call that is motivating with control, or to be as kind as possible and as firm as you need to be. Is that when you work with a person that stands in front of you and you're trying to overcome an issue, let them say what they're going to contribute. You identify every small step in the right direction. And you really give them, some love, some genuine love. And on the end of the week or end of the day, depending how serious the issue is, you do a quick follow-up to see how they are. And if they didn't do it, then you escalate it from requesting to telling, requesting to asking to telling to directing. But that's the thing, is that people don't really understand how to work on the psychology of the person in front of you, rather than just do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, and earlier you dropped a pretty good sized gold nugget that I never even thought of. I knew what the saying about it was, but I never thought about the reason for it. And you talked about the size of a person's negative brain compared to their positive brain, right? And if I'm a leader and I'm giving you 3 negatives to every 1 positive thing that I say about you, we're never going to get caught up. I'm just going to be further and further in debt, and it's going to push you further and further away, because all you're going to remember is all the negative that I said because of how much it outweighs.
Yeah.
And that ratio really needs to be changed. It needs to be the other way around. For every negative thing I say, I need to find 3 or 4 positive things to make sure that I'm reinforcing.
Yeah.
And that's going to do 2 things. It's one, it's going to allow the good to not slip while we're focusing on the problems and the things that we need to fix. And 2, it's going to keep you motivated in a way that says, hey, I'm not failing, but there's things that I can do better.
Yeah, 4-to-1 ratio has been researched, the right ratio. And that's exactly where that term comes from. That when I say as soft as possible and as firm as you need to be.
Yeah.
The thing is that our expectation as leaders, poorly educated or leaders, is that you will only be satisfied when you work on my level. But the thing is, they are not you. Right? The reason why you in the leadership role probably because you are a high performing doer and were elevated into leadership. The problem is they should have given you enough information to be able to also become a highly effective leader. In other words, have difficult conversation, how to motivate people, how to inspire people. And I see a lot of people fall short of that.
Yeah. What is I know we're getting kind of to the top of the hour. What is it that you would like for a young leader to take away from this conversation?
So the first and foremost is you do not and should not go at it alone. And I will tell you that you probably have a male dominant audience. Of all the work that I've done, women have become much smarter than men. They lower the threshold of and say, I need help. Men's egos and pride get in the way and say, I'll figure it out. Yeah. And many of you do not ever figure it out. And you know what the thing is you're preventing yourself from being as successful as you can be. And I want to put this into monetary terms because guys understand this better. If you don't go out and ask for help, if you don't learn how to build robust habits and behaviors that lead sustainable outcome, that differentiate you from all the other people. A $15,000 raise today in the next 12 months is going to cost you $1 million over 25 years compounded. So if that doesn't get your attention, nothing else will.
Yeah.
Right? So if you want to make a difference, right? You have to make a deep commitment. You likely have to make a small investment. Now, I say this, for myself, is that I want people to be successful, and you can go and get yourself $1,000 a month coach, and I'm sure you go far. And people versus I give it to you for free. Well, the thing is, if I give it to you for free, there's nothing in it for you. There's no skin in the line. Right now, I'm not telling you to go out and spend $1,000 a month because that's probably overpaying for it. But you need to have some skin in the game in order for you to take it serious. That's psychology talking. Hey,
Yeah.
if it's $100 a month, your negative brain says it's just $100. Who gives a shit?
Yep.
But if I found that $400 a marker is the right amount of money, right? It's shamefully, it used to be a car payment, but today car payments are more like $800, I think. $400 seems to be the right pain point for most people. That if they have to pay that, they will show up, do the work, and make progress. So I've seen those people who paid, right? 87% of those, of all the clients I worked with over the last 3.5, 4 years, have gotten a new role or a promotion or a raise within 12 to 18 months. That's pretty amazing, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he says that in the proof of the pudding is the fact that they made a commitment financially to themselves in order to get a reward on the back end. And the reward was this. They learned to love the work that they did. They learned to become more effective in leadership. That brought joy to them. But that is leading for cause. It also caused them to really put results. And it's the results that will get you a new job at the end of the day, or a raise or a promotion.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that is a lesson that I just recently learned not too long ago. I never thought of, that if you got something for free, that there was no value in it. I used to think that, somebody being kind was the value. And the truth is you proved it with your gym membership. That $29, $39 a month gym membership is, who cares? I can sit here and watch TV and I don't have to go to the gym, and I'm not going to miss that $30 that I spent for that membership that I'm not using anymore. If that gym membership was more like $200 a month, well, now I'm going to make sure that I'm getting my money's worth. And I learned that through some men's support groups that I became a part of. And I've learned it through a lot of other mental health programs that I've been a part of. And if you don't have skin in the game, you're not going to take it serious. And it doesn't matter how good the information you're getting, because it's all for nothing.
It is. And then I'll couple with that, when you do make the commitment and you're not measuring your performance, then you also, that's the second biggest disfavor people do, is that they do the work, but they don't measure. And then they end up faltering in the back end and never really get to the next level of performance. It is, again, you don't have to go. You don't have to go it alone. You need to have skin in the game. The key thing for guys is lower that threshold of pride and ego. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. And I would promote people get a mentor rather than a coach. A coach is somebody who's really good in strategy, asks good questions, great listeners. But you want to find a mentor, somebody who's been there, done that, has felt pain, made the mistakes, fell down, got back up. Somebody who's more relatable, but also who can give you structure, right? Help you, design an operating system that works for you, right? It is, and that's precisely the reason I don't have one program that fits everybody, because it needs to be adjusted to who you are.
Yeah.
It is that you need it for. And that's, again, the mobile app is a support tool. So if people say, listen, I really can't afford it, but I really want it, hey, go to the Apple Store, buy the smart app, 7 days for free, and then it's $50 a month or $1.50 a day. Do I think that $1.50 a day is going to be a driver for them to go there? Absolutely not. So only people who are really committed will end up doing successful. Other people will buy just like the membership, and they send me a $50 check every month.
Yeah.
Never use. So that's the danger of that. Now, the good thing is I know that. So I'll be bugging you, especially in the first 2-3 weeks, to remind you to get into the part of habit building. So you start getting traction. And it comes with an open coach call once a week. So it's another appointment on your calendar where you can come for 30 minutes and work in a group, because we love communities. Right? No different than the shows that you have, where you try to build a community of like-minded people or people where we have good discussions and growth can come from that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, how is it? I see the website, but how is it that a new person can reach out and one, follow and learn about your program, and two, sign up?
Sure, absolutely. You can go to my website, DutchMentor.com. Always, everything is there. Find me on LinkedIn, Walter Dusseldorf, or the Dutch Mentor. Instagram account or YouTube. Key thing is that every day I put out something that gives you that little bit nugget of growth mindset material, right? And so if you just use that as a maintenance strip and take intentional one-to-one or group coaching or webinar that from which you can continue to drive. That I think is the right place to start for yourself. And if you're interested in joining, book a call on my website and let's chat for 15, 30 minutes. And I'll be happy to help you on your way.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate everything that we have talked about. It's a important topic for myself. And I learn something new every time from a guest that comes on, because, leadership is a very broad situation. You're going to come across things that you just have never experienced before. And the little bit of nuggets that you have left our audience, I think is more valuable than anything else that they've done today. So I think it's important. Make sure that all you guys that are listening, go check out thedutchmentor.com, follow him, learn a little bit. Again, he mentioned, what was the app called if they'd like to download the app?
It's the Smart Performance app, or just in the App Store, the Dutch Mentor, all one word, and it comes right up.
Okay. Or you can go get the app and dip your toes into it. But remember, again, you're getting what you pay for. And if you don't put your best foot forward and make your bed that day, you're starting off on the wrong foot. So
well said.
Hey, I appreciate you coming on. Again, all of y'all, take care, be safe, and have a great day.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
You've been listening to The Real Leadership Brief, a podcast from the Barracks Media Network. Thanks to our guest for sharing their experience, and thank you for listening. You can find more conversations like this across the Barracks Media Network. We'll see you next time.